My experience has been that we are pretty good at deceiving ourselves and we can dodge our own greatness by saying, I don't know what it is. That's one of the most common things I will hear is, I just simply don't know. Hello and welcome. This is Zero Limits Living. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. Every week, I bring you inspiration and information to transform your life. The show's become so popular so quickly, you can now see this or hear this on 1,000 platforms across the universe, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, YouTube, and more. Probably anything you can name. To make it easy for you, I'm putting all the shows in one place. Go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com, ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. Also, people ask me about coaching. I started coaching 20 years ago. Go to miraclescoaching.com. It's trademarked. It's a system that works. Miraclescoaching.com. My latest program, mentaltimetravel.system.com. Been changing lives, mentaltimetravel.system.com. Go see what all the talk is about. Also, I've written 80 or 90 books. I don't remember how many. People tell me there's like 90 of them. I don't know. I just write them. My latest book is Unexpected Kindness, and you can go to unexpectedkindnessbook.com to check it out. Now, I have the most exciting guest, somebody I've wanted to talk to for about 2 years now. I read her book a couple years ago, loved it, bought copies for people, told everybody about it, but I never had a chance to interview her until today. Let me tell you who I have so you can be really impressed and really excited. Amanda Frances, world-renowned thought leader on financial empowerment for women. Through her wildly popular digital courses, her best-selling book, Rich as Fuck, highly engaging online presence, her And She Rises podcast, and free daily content, meditations, and trainings distributed across her social media channels daily, she empowers women to design lives and businesses they are wildly obsessed with. She has written for Forbes, Business Insider, Glamour, Success Magazine. She has been featured in Entrepreneur, Flaunt, US Weekly, ET, and others. Combining her background in ministry and mental health counseling with practical advice and a deep knowledge of spiritual and energetic principles, Amanda isn't quite like any other prosperity coach you've ever encountered. A true self-made woman, while putting herself through graduate school, Amanda taught herself how to build her first website. A decade later, Amanda Frances Inc. is an 8-figure global brand serving clients and students in 85 countries. Her mission has always been to get the power of money into the hands of good-hearted women who are here to change the world. And today she's doing just that. She's also a new mama and a stepmama. So she's got a family there, and she's residing in LA. Her website is amandafrances.com. But the most exciting news of all is that she's actually here with me. Amanda, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Like I said, I've been longing for this moment. Your book, Rich as Fuck. If you look at the side here, I have all kind of pages bent back. I bought copies and gave them to people. Yes, I'm totally. I probably bought it because of the cover and because of the title. But once I started reading it, I actually got into it and was nodding my head in agreement and feeling the energy behind it.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations on, and I see from the cover it's a bestseller. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
Were you always prosperous? Were you always rich as fuck?
No, I am from a tiny town outside Tulsa called Sand Springs, lower middle class. You know, my dad worked at the steel mill. My mom stayed home. My mom cleaned houses. My dad umpired for extra money. You're getting the vibe.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting the vibe. So how does a person growing up in that environment, and you were born in Oklahoma, I think it said, end up writing a Rich as Fuck book, transforming your life, and then going on a mission to transform the lives of women, and I would say men as well, in your career? What's the turning point? What happened to you?
One one little moment at a time, one little right action, one little inspired idea, one little miracle mindset shift, one little, I think I can do it this way. What if I try this? Oh my gosh, that worked. Other people need to know that. What if I teach others, over and over, add it up over a while, creates a different life.
Yeah. But I have to be devil's advocate. A whole lot of people are trying different things and they don't work. And they just end up feeling like it's not going to work for them and they're going to stay stuck. What's different for you? Why are
I
you
think when you're
trying
in the,
things? Go ahead.
don't you think being in the energy of trying it with the energy of it's not working is a very different experience than trying it with the energy of course it's working for me. I don't care who else it did or didn't work for. I'm the exception to the rule.
I 100% agree. My question, though, would be what made you have the view that it's 100% working for you? Where did that come from?
I think I felt like I had no other options. I
Ah,
felt I was meant to be successful. I was meant to help
mhm,
people. And one way or another, I was going to forge that path because there wasn't anyone to do it for me and there wasn't any other way to create it, you know?
mhm,
And I
mhm.
believed I was meant to have it.
So where did that belief come from? Were you born with that? Did you hear it? Did you see a movie on TV? Did you read a book? How do
I
you
think
wake
a
up?
combination of a few things. Like I was an avid watcher of Beverly Hills 90210 and
Right?
Melrose Place, and now I live in Beverly Hills, right? I think I was watching things very young. Like I was too young to be watching those shows, but what I was getting from them wasn't the drama and the relationships and the whatever, it was the lifestyle. Like look at
Yeah.
the palm trees and the cars and the driving up and down the Pacific Coast Highway. I was envisioning a life. And
Yeah.
then, I'm from the Bible Belt, and there was all things are possible through God belief kind of circulating around me. And I think I took many things from that religious world and continued to evolve them and make them my own over many years.
No, that's good. That's a very good answer there. I heard a couple things. So by watching television and you're a youth watching that show, you are kind of programming your mind for that success. I don't know that you knew it back then. Maybe you did.
I
Did
didn't
you
know
know
I
you?
knew it. But I remember there was this moment. I don't think I
Mhm.
even spoke about this in my book. There was this moment where I had purchased a convertible, a Mercedes convertible. I'm driving across the country. My business wasn't making quite seven figures a year yet. I think I'd had a $500,000 year the year before. So by all means, I've become pretty successful. And and I had been traveling the globe, running my company, being a digital nomad or whatever. And I'd gone back to Oklahoma. I purchased a Mercedes convertible, an AMG, a pretty fast car, and I was driving to Santa Barbara to see if California could be my home base. And I remember as I was like lugging these like big ass suitcases into the back of the convertible, like, moving across the country with nothing but two suitcases. And I was setting across, the country. I remember thinking, there's a little girl in me and a teenager in me who dreamed of this. Like I
Ah,
couldn't have known it then, but there was a destiny moment in that. And I think
ah.
lots of different things manifested lots of different
Mhm,
parts of my life if we look back. But I think
mhm.
something about making my way to California was definitely born in watching those TV shows.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that is absolutely beautiful. You said you were in business. What was your business then? That's before you wrote this book.
So I'm a therapist by trade. So I got a master's in counseling. I was a children's therapist. Before that, I was in ministry. It's been a long journey. But so my business evolved when I went from doing therapy to doing coaching because I discovered I could coach internationally when I could only do therapy in the state of Texas where I'd gotten my master's degree, right? So I started coaching more internationally and I started helping other therapists to add coaching legs to their practices so they could help people without all the red tape and the licensure and the insurance and la da da. So that accidentally made me a business coach. I never intended to be one, but there I was business coaching but I was still trading time for money, which
Mm,
there's coaching models that very much work for people, but I was thinking, how do I help more people and make more money? And then I had an idea for my first digital course, which was called Become a Life Coach. And I took a handful of people through the process of setting up coaching practices. And then I had an online education company, accidentally again, which I've grown into a pretty big online education and coaching empire.
this was fascinating. You used the word accidentally several times And it's almost like you've manifested things, maybe before this moment and before your book, without consciously trying to. It's almost like you're watching the TV show and a little part of you, the youthful part, is just kind of dreaming of being there. And that, of course, is a way to program yourself. The speculation about how can you make more money and help more people at the same time, that goes back to Zig Ziglar, but it doesn't sound like you read Zig Ziglar, and
I
it
didn't
doesn't
read
sound
it.
you did
No,
or didn't. You
did
didn't.
not. I still
Yeah.
have not.
There seems to have been an intuitive pull in you that I'm still curious about. Were you born with that? Or is that part of the religion that was around you or your parents or somebody else? Do you know? Do you remember?
I think it's yeah, I think it's a combination of many things. I
Okay.
think what there were pieces of the religion that I was taking and saying, okay, I have God on my side and I can do anything. God is not against me, God is for me. So there was a connection to something greater always. And even when I left the religious world, kind of in stages over time, it was never like I was leaving God or my connection to my higher power, higher source, however you want to
Hmm.
speak of it. It was just that like the religious world and maybe the four walls of the church weren't working for me any longer, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
So there's the
Yeah.
connection to the divine going on all the time. And then my mom did say, she said it a lot, one thing I know about you is you can do anything you put your mind to. Because I was just that kind of kid, like
Right.
I remember deciding I was going to be a cheerleader, just deciding. And then every day for like a year, sitting on the floor and practicing the splits and doing my toe touches in the mirror and going on the trampoline, practicing a backhand. Like, I mean, daily commitment, like where does an 11-year-old get that?
Right.
So through my business, some things did just happen and it did seem like an accident. I didn't ever say like I want an online education empire or I want to be a business coach. I never said those things, but I did say, how do we help more people? What do I have to give? What do I know for sure? What am I here to teach? Like there was always an intention to move forward, to be a business owner, to empower others. But like when I was first saying I wanted all those things, life coaching wasn't even a thing yet. No one had heard of it.
Right. Right.
So I couldn't know that it would be in the coaching world or the online education world.
Yeah. This is fascinating. This is absolutely fascinating. You sound like you are, and have always been, a very intelligent woman. So, in other words, you seem to be strong willed. Maybe that's from the programming from your mother, who was rooting for you and being a cheerleader for you in the corner. Part of that seems to have been from the religion. But I can't help but wonder, how does a woman who is, you said you have a ministry background and a counseling background
Yeah.
and the religious upbringing, write a book with the title Rich as Fuck?
Because you know what? I think this was, I mean, this is going to sound a little crazy. I feel like that was a little bit God given as well. At some point in my journey, I don't even know. At some point in my journey, there was a part of my brain, like a marketing part of my brain, that had to turn on and start to see things from a marketing lens. And so when I was writing the book, I didn't know what the title was going to be or what the cover was going to be necessarily. But like as the book is forming, there's this through line of more money than you know what to do with. You hear me
Yeah.
say that throughout the book. So I'm like, okay, I
Hmm.
think it's a subtitle. And then my name's Amanda Francis, and I played on the Amanda Francis as fuck AF thing over many years. And I'm like, I'm playing with like rich as fuck. Is that too bold to say during a pandemic, rich as fuck? And then that photo shoot of me in the bathtub of $100 bills, that was from a launch years ago. But like I said, it was pandemic time. I wasn't going to do a new photo shoot. So what image do I have that's the most eye catching? Because in marketing, as you know, you just have to sometimes get their attention. Because like you said, once you get on the inside, the blonde girl in the bathtub had something to say. But why
Yes.
are you going to read the blonde girl in the bathtub if she doesn't make you want to open the book?
Right. That is absolutely brilliant. And again, I'm fascinating. You knew to turn on the marketing part of your brain.
Or
I
I knew to ask God I knew to ask the right questions. Maybe I knew to pray the right prayers, set the right intentions. Cause there was a lot of like, but how do I, like between like me and myself and God, how do I get to more people?
Yeah.
How do I grow the audience? Like, God, what is this? What do I need to know? What do I need to do? So like to me, inspired guidance is very much like a asking for help and guidance, believing that the help and guidance has to come through, taking action always and believing like that the right inspired ideas are just going to have to come to me. But I really have a belief that they will come to me every time. That is a core belief of mine.
Where did that come from? Where did that come from?
The inspiration of our souls? I don't know, A combination of your personality, your soul, and like you said, a little bit of intellect.
Yeah, all coming together. Are you giving credit for your title to God?
Yeah, I don't think God's offended by the word fuck, and that makes people really mad.
Well, I would have asked you if you thought it was an offensive word to the divine, and it sounds like it isn't.
So this was also a journey for me. So imagine I'm coming out of like religious world and therapy world. I have 2 Bible school degrees. So like everyone in my life at one point was very religious. So I'm leaving that world. And then I'm going back to school. I'm doing these things. I finish undergrad. I get my master's in counseling, blah, 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 blah. And like, I'm starting to share inspirational content online every day. This is before I have any clients, but this is just the idea that maybe my business, maybe therapy is going to evolve to coaching. Maybe I need an online presence. I'm just playing with it. So I'm sharing inspirational content online every day, but I still have all these very religious people following me. And there had to be a moment of going like, who am I here to help? And who am I okay with offending? And is it okay to be polarizing? And who are going to be my people in the end? And I found that as I used words like fuck, as I used God and fuck in the same sentence, as I did things like that, a lot of people with like religious abuse in their background or like trauma around Christianity or whatever it is, a lot of people like that kind of went, oh, she knows God just like I do, but she's clearly not stuck in some like religious box. She's saying fuck. And something about that early branding, marketing decision, though I wouldn't have known to call it branding or marketing, something about choosing to go ahead and speak like I speak and speak that way, it really, I think, kind of formed my initial crowd of humans, that became my audience.
I love it. Amanda, you are amazing. Before we got here to begin our interview, because of the nature of the title of the book, and you used the word several times in the book, I didn't know if you'd be a potty mouth or what. No,
fuck is intentional.
I get that. So I'm very impressed with you. I'm very impressed. I was already impressed with the book. Thanks. I wrote to you a couple of years ago when your book came out, and I was congratulating you on it. And of course, COVID was happening, and all of us were doing our song and dance to protect ourselves and our loved ones. And you had written back a nice note saying you had read my book, Attract Money Now, and that you were in a hotel or something. You remembered the moment, and there was a shift for you. Do you remember it now?
Yeah. So here's where you're a big part of my journey. I didn't read whoever you mentioned earlier, but I did read you. So let's figure out when this was. Let's say it's 2012, 2013. So I have a coaching business. I have a handful of clients. I'm enjoying life coaching. I'm probably making 6 figures. I'm doing okay. And I'm on a rooftop of a hotel. I tell a story in my book where I'm also on a rooftop of a hotel because I found that, that there was something beneficial to me about getting into environments where people could afford things I couldn't afford yet and observing the ease at which they received and allowed themselves to be in those environments, right? So I was hanging out at 5-star hotels and pools. So I don't know how I came across your book, but I did. And in Attract Money Now, you're talking about being in Dallas, Texas. And I think you're living in a car or something. So I'm in Dallas, Texas, and I'm sitting on a rooftop and I'm in Uptown and I'm just imagining you down across the highway and downtown in the car. And I'm thinking there was something synchronistic about that moment, right? I'm thinking I'm supposed to be reading this book right now. And the thing you asked that really was pivotal for me is you said something like, what problem are you going to solve? What problem? And I thought, well, what's the biggest problem for me? And I knew it had something to do with finances and money, and that all the women I was coaching, that there were themes and there were patterns in their experience with money, and almost I needed to crack the code and how money was working for them and how money was working for me and why it was working in those ways. So I set this intention in my journal: God, help teach me how to make money, and I'll teach women everywhere how to do the same.
Wow.
So yeah, and then like fast forward years later, so I'm teaching courses and I'm doing like the online education thing. And when I tell this story, and it was either Become a Life Coach or Money Mentality Makeup or one of my first few courses, when I tell this story, I gave for years. I gave everyone a link to Attract Money Now to opt in to your thing. I
Thank
took
you.
like it was just there in my resources on
Right.
that video
Thank you.
for years and years.
Wow, what a great story. Well, one of the reasons I like your book so much is the energy in it. Besides the title, which is blunt, which grabs people, and the photo, which is sexy and seductive, which makes you look at it. The subtitle, "More Money Than You Know What to Do With." That
Yeah.
is such a cool phrase. More money than what you know what to do with. So, what I want to get into is why don't we have more money than what we want to do with, or can do with? What I'm looking at is what have you discovered working with all these people, from the readers of your best-selling book, any experience you personally had? What are the big blocks for us? Let's help the people that are watching and listening now to attract more money, to be rich as fuck. What do we do? What are the blocks?
All the thing. I mean, I think, well, everyone has many different things based on their
Mhm.
personality and their family of origin and their socioeconomic status and their background. We all have like different things, their trauma, different things to work through. But when you said, why don't we have more money than we know what to do with? The first thing that came to me is like, we are so that Marianne Williamson quote, we're still so scared of our greatness.
Yeah.
You know, who am I to be big? Who am I to be great? Am I worthy of that much money? What would I do with that much money? Am I deserving of it? Would I know how to handle it responsibly? I'd probably blow it all. I can't be trusted with that. Who am I to have that? What would I even do with it? You know, we have all of that stuff floating around our minds and around our communities and our environment and our subconscious all the time.
How do we clear the cobwebs? Where do we begin? If there's somebody watching, I always like to pretend that I have a visual of a woman with two kids in Iowa, and it could be
Yeah.
anywhere. And she's
Yeah.
watching or listening to the show, and she's going, "Well, this is exciting. I see Dr. Joe's made some money. I see Amanda's made some money. What is wrong with me? How do I do this? How do I become rich as fuck? How do I have more money than I know what to do with?" Where does she begin?
Okay, I'm gonna have a very simple process. And she can also
Sure.
read the book to get
Of
more of
course.
this more in
I
depth,
endorse
you
the
know.
book. I tell everybody, go read the book.
Oh, I don't just want to do the process justice, you know. But a
Okay.
very simple thing, I'm deciding which way to start on this one. I think we'll say two different things. I think we'll go with this. I'm going to do it out of order. So when you say to yourself something along the lines of course I can have money, or I'm meant to have money, or she has money and I can too, or something like that, something based on when you say a thought or a phrase that you would like to be true, all the limiting beliefs now rise up to the surface of all the reasons you can't do it. And that's good. We want them to rise to the surface. So, what I like to have people do is look at every single one of those things and ask if they are ultimately true. And no, they never are, because nothing's ultimately true. You can always find someone who did it even though they shouldn't have been able to, like me or you or whoever, right? You in a car and me living in a car and me in Sand Springs, Oklahoma. So if every single one of those limiting beliefs are not ultimately true, then it is now our job to disprove them. So as though we are in the court of law and we are an attorney arguing for why, to have the thing disprove every single one of those ideas. I'm not deserving. Says who? Like, says who? I like to say, you know, you're worthy because you are. God made us all worthy. The worth is not in question. The worth is not the thing, right? And then, but I don't even know how I would make it. Well, to how I like to say, the how is not your responsibility, which is how I can say so many of these things were accidents, is I knew the direction I was going and I knew who I wanted to be, but I never knew the how until I was in the middle of like doing the how. We don't have to know the how ahead of time, you know?
Right.
We just have to start moving and acting like it's possible. And with every single one of the limiting things, I could object to it. I could find an objection and prove it to be false. And we have to learn to do that with our own minds and our own beliefs kind of all the time.
Wow.
And then the other thing I would say, which I normally have people do first, but you can do it at any point, after you've done some of that, maybe you could ask yourself this question and be more honest than ever before on what do you really, really want? What
Yeah.
do you want? I think it's the question that like all of us all the time are usually not fully admitting to ourselves on all of, I still ask myself, but what do you want? But what do you really want? But what else do you want? And if there was one more thing, what would it be? Like, because in our desires is like our passion and our purpose and the things that bring us alive. And I think we want passionate, purposeful, alive lives, you know?
I totally agree. And I love what you're saying here. So if the woman is sitting on the sofa with the two kids and she's eating the Doritos and she's watching us or listening to us right now, she has a spark of enthusiasm in her. How does she uncover what she really wants? My experience has been that we are pretty good at deceiving ourselves and we can dodge our own greatness by saying, I don't know what it is. That's one of the most common things I will hear is, I just simply don't know. Where
Yeah,
would you take if you were
well,
coaching somebody? Yeah.
yeah, bullshit. I think
Uh-huh.
I like to ask questions like, but if you did know, what would
Yeah.
it be?
Yeah.
If no one would be mad at you, what would it be? If you couldn't mess it up, what would it be? If no matter what you said next, it were right, what would it be? Because we just have to like get out of our own way. I think we do know.
Yeah. And you have questions like that, what you just said in your book. I remember because I was rereading some parts of it today. The other thing that jumped out of your book, and I think this is another one of the secrets to success I'd like to hear you elaborate on, is you spent a lot of time advising people on feeling the end result of what they want. In other words, if they want more money or they want the fancy car or they want to move into a mansion, whatever, instead of just writing it down, instead of just thinking about it, I got the impression, unless I'm wrong, that they should already go to the end result mentally and live
Yeah.
from it.
Well, yeah, assume the energy of that which they desire. So I think this clicked for me when I had spent pretty significant time, like grad school, maybe a little undergrad, of trying to visualize because everyone was talking about visualizing.
Right.
And I would visualize and I would see stuff, but I would feel nothing. And it eventually occurred to me that like this whole manifestation thing or co-creation thing or law of attraction, whatever we call it, like the thing that I felt like was there, that was the thing that I never got in church. I think religion kind of doesn't get is the energy part, that every thought has energy, every phrase, every word, every emotion, everything has energy. And it was aligning my energy with where I wanted to go that would get me somewhere. So since visualization never made me feel anything, I noticed that when I would journal it or write it or think it, I would feel it. I would be able to move energy. I'd be able to feel the possibility, And so I forget what your question was.
It's all about feeling the end result. In other words,
getting into the vibe of where you want to go, the frequency of what it will be like when you have it. Yeah. Because if we just think it but feel nothing or picture it but feel nothing, then we're not really moving the energy. We're not really moving ourselves in a direction,
But how do they feel it? Because I have heard from people that a little bit like what you just said, because we talk about visualization all the time and they'll shrug and go, I can't visualize. I don't see the pictures. And now we're moving into, well, I want you to feel the end result of walking through the house you now own, or I want you to imagine you're behind the wheel of the car and you're driving it, get into the feeling. And somebody could say, I don't feel it. I don't know how to feel it. How do you walk them into that feeling so they got something to lock on to feel it real eventually?
So we need to find out when they do feel something, like when they do get some of that energy or excitement moving. So I remember back when I was in grad school, when I was playing with a lot of these concepts and whatever, I noticed that I felt a lot of energy, like in a dance club at the end of the night when all the music was like going on. I had champagne in my hand. That was a great time, I discovered, to start to picture the thing I wanted and to fill into it. Because something about the energy of the room made me feel something. So I was like, why don't I take all this energy around me and focus on this business I'm starting and where I'm going? And I also would feel something in a spin class, like in a soul cycle class, like everyone's going at the end. Like that was a great time for me to focus on a goal. So that's like more movement based. And a lot of people like moving energy with movement. For me, more than anything, it's the words though. When I say like, I was driving around Dallas, Texas saying out loud, I am a multimillionaire. I was made to be a multimillionaire. It is who I am, because the words make me feel something that the visualization does not personally make me feel. So like picturing myself in a car wouldn't really make me feel anything, but I could write about how it feels to have those cars in my driveway and I might feel more of something. So you kind of have to figure out what gets you into the energy, into the
Yeah,
vibe.
no, that's a great answer and great examples. And you talk about it in your book because I reread some of it again today, came up with that. What about some of the other concepts like guilt? A lot of people feel like, oh, I'm going to be selfish if I go and I start reading the book and I do Amanda's process, and now I have money, and now I have jewelry, and now I have purses, and now I have cars, and
It's
you know,
honestly more selfish not to. I mean, to be really, I mean, I could say so many things about this. I think guilt's a liar. I don't think guilt is the thing that we want leading our lives. I think guilt is helpful to us to like a small degree, but helps us realize we're engaging in something that doesn't feel good to us. It's nice to have a little bit of guilt to go like, ooh, pivot. But like guilt for being successful is crazy. So the more money you have and the more well-resourced you are, the more things you can do on the planet just as a whole.
yeah,
From how you raise your kids, the schools you put them in, to like the accounts I'm able to have for my children. My 9-month-old has a 529, an IRA, and this and that. I didn't have that stuff till I was like funding it myself. So like being able to support your kids, but then not just your family, like your community, the way I'm able to donate and give back. Since I do a lot of online education, for every digital course, every enrollment period, we pick a cause that gets 10% of the funds that are received that month through that course. And we've been doing that ongoing. And so at the end of every year, we're giving like multiple six figures to these places. Like
wow.
I wouldn't be able to do that if I was only making multiple six figures. And then I say only with that, because at one point in time, I could barely make $30,000 a year,
Yeah.
and now I think that's kind of a low day. But that's the thing with money, is it's expandable, a multipliable, and endless. And it's really just the way we see it holding us back mostly.
I love those answers. I've often said that one of the best reasons to welcome money in your life is the difference you can make in the causes you believe in, the people you care about, your family, friends, community, all the things you've been complaining about. Money can help solve them. And that's one of the things you say in the book, is that money is a great thing for solving problems. It's a great
It's
solution.
neutral. Right. I
Yeah.
believe money is neutral on its own, and it's up
Yes.
to us what we do with it. But it doesn't, I don't think money changes people. I think it magnifies who we
Yeah.
already are.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that. Well, what about the biggest concept of money is the root of all evil? That's a statement that comes from religion. And I know the answer to this, but I want you to expand on it from your place here, because I've been all over the world and I've heard that's lodged in their subconscious mind across the planet.
For a lot of people. If I'm remembering that verse correctly, oh no, I'm thinking of it that it's easier for a rich man to get in. I'm thinking of a
To
different
go
verse.
through an eye of a needle than to get
The
into
eye
the
of the needle,
kingdom.
yeah, because the eye
Yeah.
of the needle one. If I'm here, I'll just reference see what comes
Yeah,
up.
do it. Let's
The,
do it.
the eye of the needle verse. I remember people. That's Matthew something, and people were asking me about it. Just I was getting a lot of DMs, like maybe a year ago. I was like, let me go reread the verse. Let me see what I remember there. And it's something like someone says, hey, Jesus, how do I get into heaven? And Jesus says all this stuff about like doing good and taking care of people and this and this and this and this. And he says, don't be deceived. It'd be easier for a rich man to whatever than to pass without a needle than to go to heaven. And then when I read it, I went like, to me, that sounds like God's not impressed by your wealth necessarily. Like, don't just be like, oh, I have money. Now I can go to heaven. It says, do good, do good, do good, do good, do good. So I read that, do good, do good, do good, do good, and have money and do good with it. Like, I don't, like
Yeah, yeah.
saying that only wealth would get us somewhere spiritually is obviously insane. But I think we're taking that one way out of context and way to an extreme. And
Yeah.
as far as money being the root of all evil, I think it says the love of money is the root of all evil. And I think so, like, I love money. I love money because of what it can do and what it can provide and how it can help people. But I don't love money like I worship money. I love money like I have a good relationship with it. Like I want
Hmm.
to work well with it. I want to use it well. I want to have a place in my life that is supportive. That does not mean I am worshiping it above all else. And I think probably what that verse is talking about is the temptation or the idea to stop treating people well and stop doing good just to get a buck,
Yeah.
just to like to take opportunities to be greedy. And businesses like mine and like yours, I've never seen that as a necessity at all. You can just
Hmm.
make money helping people. You don't have to like put money above people in any kind of way, you know?
I absolutely do know. I absolutely do know. When you came out with your book, what did your family and friends say, or your husband, if you were married at the time? Were they
No,
were they
we're not
accepting?
married.
Were they
So Eddie said, Eddie was like, he wanted me to call it something else. And he was like, he just thought Rich as Fuck was just a little tacky, just a little like in your face, just a little like show offy. And I was like, listen, it's like my job to get this book to people. Like I don't, he didn't really get an opinion. Like I was lightly aware of his opinion, but his job isn't to be my marketer, it's to be my partner. So it's not like I was really asking.
right?
And my family, they're used to it by now.
Is that right? Well, there are several books that are bestsellers, like the subtle art of not giving a fuck.
I haven't read
That
that one. Have you?
I have not read it either. Everybody tells me to read it, but it's like I don't give a fuck about that book, so I haven't read it. So, but there are books that use that word. So I just wondered what your parents thought. If they said anything, did they try to stop you? Did they shun you from church? Were you,
No,
any?
my parents aren't religious. It was just my
Uh,
community was so, so, so religious. And I like took a lot away from that, like we've already
mhm,
said. As far as saying the word fuck though, in that season of time I was talking about where I was kind of experimenting with how I was going to speak online and who my people were and what was going to
mhm,
attract my people. In that season of time, I remember one day my dad picked me up from the airport in Dallas, actually. He didn't live there, but he was visiting there and I was coming through there. Anyway, long story. He picked me up and he was like, so what is it about saying fuck off? Like, what is this about? And I like tell him like what I'm doing. And he said, well, good thing your mom gave you so many words to work with. And I said, okay. That was the whole conversation about me saying fuck on the internet.
Well, it sounds like you're blessed with family that's supporting you here and coming out with your book. So what I want to know here was there anything or what was startling as you were going through this process of becoming more aware of how to create what you want, whether you call it the law of attraction or a manifestation process? You in the early days when you were doing it and you're watching the TV show and then you end up in California, I don't know that you were very consciously aware of the operating system that was causing you to create the experience of going out there. Now you're far more aware and you teach other people to be aware and to use this system. What was startling to you that you didn't know before? Was there an insight? Was there a technique, a process, something that surprised you that tends to work that, we can all learn right now?
Yeah. I'm still surprised by this, like all the time,
Wow.
is how much we are really in charge of a lot of what is going on for us, like all the time.
Hmm.
So in my book, I call it energetic set points. And I talk about, the energetic minimum and the maximum. Like, do you notice that your account never goes above this, but never goes below this?
Okay.
Whether it's a negative number,
Yeah.
whether, you'll pay down your debt to a certain amount, but it always gets back up to this amount. Your savings is never above this,
Yeah.
you're willing to get one eviction notice, but not actually be evicted, but that happens over and over. We all have these things that happen
Yeah.
over and over and over and over and over in our lives. And we think it's just the way life is. But if you look at it, it's happening for you over and over and not necessarily other people. Everyone else has their own different experience and pattern. And once I realized that those were set points that I had accidentally, subconsciously put in place and I could move them,
Hmm.
that was shocking to me. And the reason it's still shocking is, and I've been teaching this for like that concept for like 8 years or something.
Hmm.
So yesterday I was talking to my like my business manager, like the woman who helps me run my business. And I was releasing a digital course today. And I was like, let me just see how much money this digital course has made in the past couple of years. It's a lower cost offer. And one year I sold it for 555. And one year I sold it for 222. And one year I sold it for three. It had three different price points, 3 different years. I enrolled a different number of people, 3 different years. Every single time it made $150,000. That one course made the same amount every time at three prices to three people. And I went like, how did I not notice that I have some energetic minimum around this where I expect this program to make this amount? And that's just what it is. And why is it that number? Why is it not more? Why is it not less? But I think we do this to ourselves all the time. in our raises and our promotions and in our careers and our caps on our finances, and we don't even know we're doing it.
Oh, Amanda, that is a brilliant insight, but it leads to the need for a brilliant solution. What do we do? What did you do when you find out there's a set point there and people watching, listening, they suddenly realize, well, I've got a set point here. I'm always hitting the ceiling. How do we raise the ceiling? How do we move the set point? How did you do it?
So I've done different. So I'll just do this example with this thing I opened for enrollment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at it and I'm going to look at the number and go like, isn't that interesting? There it is. There's the insight. I'm going to say, well, what do I want it to be? What do I want this offer to make over this like 4-day open enrollment period or whatever? Like, what do I want here? What would feel good? What would feel like I helped the most people and made the most impact and made a worthwhile amount of money for the exchange I'm providing? And I have to get clear on the desire, just like we said earlier, or else everything's arbitrary. You have to know what you want.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get clear at the desire, and then my brain's going to say, oh, but can you make that much in a recession? And this is going on in the world, and this is going on in the world. And are you sure that many people are in a place to spend 444 on this, whatever? And my brain's going to give me all the objections. I'm going to be like, well, no, brain, we've done crazier things than make money in a recession or whatever. And I'm going to I'm going to prove it all to be untrue. And I'm going to give myself some new beliefs around what's possible. I'm going to rally my energy behind it. I'm going to get myself believing it. And it's going to take a little bit of like exercising faith to decide it's possible. Even after doing it all these years, like I still hit these edges, we all do. Yeah. I'm going to exercise some faith and decide what's possible. I'm going to pick a new number and I'm going to move toward it. And if we get all the way there, I'm going to celebrate. And if we don't get all the way there, I'm going to look at how much closer we got and be like, okay, we got closer. Next time we're getting closer again. And I'm just going to, move in the direction I want to go.
I love it. I love it. It leads to a question. This is going to be a variation of what I like to ask every guest every time I do the show. I usually ask them, are there any limits? The show's called Zero Limits Living, so I want to explore, do we have any limits? But a variation of that question for you would be, are there any limits to how high you could go in terms of constantly changing that set point? If you find out that set point is for $150,000 for that particular course, you notice it, you go through the process you just explained, which was beautiful. So now you raise the set point. Is there any ceiling ultimately? Is it really zero limits? Can you go all the way to make up some crazy or what sounds crazy?
Something.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see why not. So what I've done is like what I've called incremental increases, where it's like every year, every launch, every time I'm inspired, you do a little bit more. And so every year is a little better, every launch, every quarter, every whatever. Because like, as you know, if when you were still in the car, you said, I'm going to make $4 million this year, you wouldn't have been able to get yourself behind it. You had to get yourself to the first thing. I don't know that I could get myself behind $1 billion today, but I could probably get myself behind this, enrollment period, making $250,000 or something. So, or I'll pick a fun number like a 222 or something that excites me. So I think there are absolutely zero limits, but the trick is we have limits and we can only get our minds and energies behind so much at a time. And the trick is increasing it as we go, I think.
That is a beautiful answer. You knew that I was going to interview you, and you probably were speculating on what the conversation would be like. How am I saying this? Was there a question that you were hoping I would ask you? Were you just kind of rubbing your hands together and say, oh, I can't wait to answer this question. I hope he asked me about.
I wanted you to ask me about the pool and the reading your book, and you did.
Oh, good.
That's kind of special,
Right.
Not really anything else, but
okay. Well, I have a variation. Yeah, go ahead.
What's coming up, what I'm wondering, what I think, I don't know, let me talk about like where I'm at. I think it's helpful when you hear people that seem like they have it all together, talk about where their edges are.
Yes.
Like I just did with like this.
Thank you. That would be wonderful.
So I have like a real edge right now that I'm working through around what it means to be a mom and continue to make more and more money. Because what I'm discovering is I have some unhelpful beliefs. Like, like my company's doing well, about the same as last year. Everything's fine. Not really a lot of growth, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why is this? We've grown every single year. I have always grown by at least like 30, 35% year after year. Why is everything fine? And when I dug into it, I think something in me thinks if a woman is very, very, very successful, she must have neglected her children.
Ah,
That's
ah,
not going to be a helpful belief. That's
right,
not, no,
right,
that's not. And so then
right.
I'm looking at that going, why? Why? That's not true because I started this business. I am completely in charge of my hours, my time, childcare. Like right now, I just have a mother's helper like from noon to 4. Like I'm very available. So why do I think it's like this thing that I think many women are plagued with, this either love or money, either success or family. And as I met my partner, and he had kids, so I had a family, I've been able to pretty quickly like be like, no, I get to have it all. I get to have it all. I get to have it all and continue to make more money and have like these great experiences with the family. And now I like have this new kind of edge because it's a baby and I birthed it and I'm responsible for him. And what does it mean to really truly be a present mom and make more and more and more and more money? And why does something in me think that that's the place where things get stuck, where things can't continue to expand? And I think women have this like deep in us, I think it's in our society and in our culture. And I don't have all the answers yet because I'm still in the middle of it. But like, I know that, yes, of course, we can ultimately have it all. And I know it's a big fat lie. And why is it in us? I find it really interesting right now.
Thank you for being so transparent because so many people are going to relate to that. A lot of people look at you or me and they assume that we're on easy street. We have no more problems, that it's rainbows and unicorns and ice cream and whatever you dream about every day. And it's like we're still in the raw human experience here. In fact, when
Yeah.
you were finishing your book, COVID came around. Your last chapter, a couple chapters, as I remember looking at it, was about, well, things have changed here. I have to
Oh
redirect
my
and
gosh.
regroup.
Yeah. And it was really an interesting experience. COVID's happening, so we're all isolated at home and all of that. And all the protests and the uprisings for Black Lives Matter is happening like on my street. There are helicopters
Oh,
flying over my house and
oh,
protesters I can hear chanting. So I was aware. I mean, the whole world was aware, but like the tension, like, I mean, yeah, it wasn't an easy time to finish a book, but I'm thankful for it because I felt like my book became more nuanced and I was able to speak to more issues, such as, the things that came up during COVID with like hating rich people and eat the rich and all of that. Like, I felt like as I inserted all of that and as I made sure my book was like fully inclusive, in the end, I'm thankful that it happened during a more difficult time, you could
right.
say, but it was a difficult time. No one should release the book about how rich they are in a time where everyone's mad at rich people. Like what?
Right. Well, well done. How do you handle the surprising pitfalls of each day? I'm not assuming they're happening every day, but if you get disappointment, for example, if something doesn't work out the way you want and you're trying to manifest something and it's not happening, how do you get your head around that pause, that block, that stop, that apparent sluggishness in the manifestation process?
You just mean like in my daily life when things aren't flowing? I try to be the observer always, right? Because like if we're
Mm,
in it, if we're really in our human experience, it's like, why is this happening? And we're frustrated and it feels
yeah.
difficult and we're irritated and we're mad and maybe we want to blame someone and maybe blah 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 blah. But if you're the observer, you can more, like we've kind of been saying, look at the pattern. When do I create this and why do I create this? And like what comes up here? What seems to be associated with this? Like what is the trigger here? What does this remind me of? Like who do I remind myself of in these moments? And I just think there's always like a lot of insight to be had in why we're having difficulties throughout our day. And then we're just human also, and we get to be mad about stuff too.
Well, it sounds like you do a lot of inner work and introspection. Does your husband do this with you? Does he do it too, or is he doing his own thing and you're doing your own thing? How is this working out?
So I really like the way we are. So I don't know if you can hear it. The garbage truck is literally doing its thing in my alleyway very loudly. Um, I really like the way we are. So I have a Christian background and he has a Jewish background.
Mm.
And we're both spiritual, by choice through our own processes. And what I like about us is when I bring up anything, he can track with me. He can like see where I am going. He can get what I'm saying. He might use his own words and have his own examples and his own way of thinking about it. But I never feel like he doesn't get the principle
Wow.
behind what I'm saying. And that's really
Mhm.
big for someone whose job is partly being a spiritual teacher. Because I didn't really want another spiritual teacher. That wasn't really what I wanted. But I
Mhm.
wanted someone who could like be on the journey with me and be a
Oh,
support and be in the process. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So like
yeah,
it's separate, but it's together. It's both.
yeah. Oh, I love it. I love it. We're going to be running out of time, and I want to ask a couple questions. I could talk to you for hours. I mean, you're fascinating. You got so many insights, so many stories. You're so perceptive, so smart. Uh,
Thanks.
what's what's new and exciting for you? What are you most enthusiastic about? What's got you fired up to jump out of bed besides your baby and your family? But work wise, project wise, making a difference wise, what's fired you up?
Rich as Fuck is coming out in Spanish. This is the
Very
first time I've
good.
ever said that. I'm so excited. As you know from writing a million books, this could be a whole podcast episode, I'm sure. But as you know, people start writing you and asking to buy the foreign rights to your
Yeah,
books and things.
yeah.
And so we were getting some of those, and we were going, okay, like what countries do we need to let them buy the foreign rights? Because we probably can't get the book into Ukraine ourselves. But in what countries do we need to translate it ourselves and we own the rights and we distribute it? So Spanish, we didn't sell the rights, we're doing it ourselves. And I'm really excited for it. I have a list of all the Spanish speaking countries in the world. And I just feel like it is so amazing. Cause like Rich as Fuck was number one in like 20 countries or something, but it was in the category, like the English speaking category. So I think it's
Yeah.
so cool that like people who spoke English read it across the globe, but people who didn't speak English have not yet read it. So
Right.
as we knock these translations out and decide when we sell the rights, when we own the rights, I just think there's a whole. I think the book is an empire and a business in and of itself as it grows, is what I think
Yeah.
it's becoming. And I think that's pretty amazing that a book I like, I don't want to say like a book I just poured so much into through a pandemic is going to live on and on and on and on and
Yeah.
on. And we
Yeah.
just started the translations. And how
Yeah.
many will there be? Like, I think that's really cool.
How long did it take you to write the book, by the way?
14 months.
Cool. Cool. And was it an
How?
easy? Was it
No, but
easy?
writing a book is not, I don't know. You've written 90, so maybe you have a different experience than me, or maybe you refined your process.
Right.
But I didn't have a process. So, like, I just was figuring it out as I went. And I was procrastinating it really bad and I wasn't
Uh,
starting it. So I did this really kind of genius thing. I'll make this really fast and we're kind of out of time. I did this genius thing where I asked my audience if they wanted to be in a book club where they paid a fee to get the first draft of every chapter.
I think
So it was,
I saw that on your website. That was very clever.
thank you. So
Yeah.
it was something like $200 to be in the book club or $500 to be in like the VIP book club. And the VIP book club got like more insights to the writing process and some live streams with me and whatever. But I liked that is because the chapters were due to someone. Since I was self-publishing, I needed some
Right.
form of accountability. So I had them waiting on the chapters. But even with that, when the pandemic came and all the things happened, I just got kind of delayed and it took me so long. And then my first editor, I felt like she was changing my voice and making me too academic. And so I was over edited. And then my second editor was like really under editing me and like missing stuff. So like I went through a couple editors because like as you can tell the book sounds just like me and I
Right.
didn't want to lose any of that.
Right.
I just wanted
Right.
someone to be like, can you give an example here, can you whatever, and that was its own kind of journey. I found writing a book to be very hard because it felt like, this is going to sound a little crazy, but it felt like the souls of the people who needed the book were pulling on me and this book was being
Mm.
pulled out of me, and I found it really kind of like intense.
Wow.
have
I'm
you
so
had
glad.
any have you had that?
No. But I consider myself born to be a writer. I wanted to be an author when I was 16 years old. My first book was 1984, and I just started writing them. So I'm up to 90. It's what I do. So for me, it's pretty much like breathing. I did
How
learn
does
how
it
to do
work
it.
though? Because I found that it took me 2 hour and a half sessions to finish a chapter. So I needed to carve 3 hours out of my life to get a chapter done. So it was very like, and it was hard. So, so
But
you
you
just say,
did it.
come.
But you did it. You did
But
it.
I
You
did
got
it.
it done.
Do you just wake up every day and write? How do you do it?
Oh, pretty much. I live to write, so I'm writing. I'm reading. These are real books behind me, so I'm reading all the time. I'm writing all the time. I have ideas for like 20 more books, and I have another book contract, so I'm editing another book right now. I have books lined up. In fact, publishers tell me, "Can you slow down? We can't sell them as fast as you write them." I've had my own readers tell me, "Joe, we love your books, but we can't keep up. Could you just kind of pace them a little better?" So that's me. I've certainly heard from a lot of people who had struggled with it. But my important insight is that I wanted you to share what it was like, because for a lot of people, it is a struggle, and you still did it. You did it. You came out with a great book. That's why we are here, and that's why you are helping people. So
Thank you.
as we're down,
105,000 copies so far. I mean, it's really done well.
you have done fantastic. Congratulations on all levels, and you deserve all the success and all the more that's coming to you. So 1 minute left. What would you like people to remember most? What do you want them to do? We want them to go to amandafrancis.com. You've got some freebies there. We want them to go get your book, Rich as Fuck. It's probably everywhere. It's certainly on Amazon. What do you want them to do to remember? What's the point that you want to leave them with?
That you really can do anything. You really can. You can really have it all. You're made to, you're meant to, you're here to. God's behind you, the universe is behind you. You got to get yourself behind you. And it really all becomes possible.
Amanda, you are very impressive. I did
Thank
not
you.
know who I was going to meet. I am very impressed with you. I was already impressed with the book. Everybody go to amandafrancis.com. You've been watching Zero Limits Living. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. Show is seen in 1,000 different places, from Roku to Apple TV to Amazon and more. Go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com to see all the episodes. ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. Check out Miracles Coaching, miraclescoaching.com. I want to thank Lux Media, Nick and Chris doing the engineering, Candace Barr for giving me the opportunity to do this show for you. I want to thank all of you. You're the ones making a difference. Godspeed to all of you. I love all of you, and expect miracles.